So thank you for joining us. We have recently updated our Sonarqube plugin for APIC and IIB to handle API Connect. There is a natural relationship between what we do with APIC and IIB and API Connect. Many projects work with multiple technologies, so it seems reasonable to include these IBM ones together in our plugin. So in this demonstration I'm going to walk through scanning of API Connect configuration with Sonarqube and presenting the results. The the generation of diagrams and the building of relationships between IIB and API Connect. So when scanning our code with Sonarqube, we usually only scan the files relating to APIC and IIB development, so your ESQL files, message flow files, subflows, and some other associated configurations. Just to make sure that our scanning of YAML files that make up the API Connect configuration doesn't impact any other plugins we might have within Sonarqubes, we had to explicitly enable the scanning of YAML files. So what we have here is this check files YAML flag for our Sonarqube properties. What that means, if you have existing projects that have YAML files and you don't want to include the API Connect functionality, you can not set this flag, or just leave this flag out, and those will be ignored. So you need to explicitly set this flag to make the scan work. So what we've done is we've included our gateway configuration. We're going to include our gateway configuration and policy files in our scan, as we have rules for both. In this case here, I have a currently running Sonarqube, and what I'm going to do is run the analysis. Run the Sonarqube analysis in the background. From what I can see in this property file, I'm scanning one particular directory, and you can see the contents and some of the contents here. So in this case here, I've got an APIC directory containing some configuration, and then a profiles directory containing a profile file. That's it, all YAML files. What we do is we run that scan, and we end up with results in our Sonarqube dashboard. In this case here, I've set up a quality profile with just API Connect rules and one or two IIB rules, just to show you that they're actually both those technologies being scanned. In this case here, these the API Connect rules we've enabled, and there's some things to do with various different coding and development standards. So in this case here, we have rules related to security. So for example here, where we're dictating that any targets of an API Connect flow should be HTTPS. In this case here, it's indicating that we're referring to or directing traffic to a non-HTTPS endpoint. Another one relating to security, in this case here, is when we indicate that the product itself should support HTTPS. This is indicating that the API Connect configuration will allow non-HTTPS traffic to pass through. We have other rules relating to various other coding standards. For example, naming standards. In this case here, we're suggesting that we should have a particular policy name. So in this case here, we're suggesting that all policies should have a name of some intention revealing name and policy at the end. So in this case here, it's saying that the policy file should have -policy at the name at the end of the file. And again with the name of the policy itself. So inside the policy, we're suggesting that the policy name itself should be called policy, or should end in policy, just so we can separate and know which ones, what the intent of each of those different file types are. We have some other rules relating to, say, gateway code. So we look here, we're looking for sensitive data in gateway script code. In this case here, when we scan through the code, we see that we're looking to debug out the user's username and password, which is it's sensitive information which ideally you don't want showing up in analog files, so that our internal users should not be able to look at those log files and determine the user credentials of an external party. Another one relating to gateway script is the layout. So in this case here, we're suggesting when we go through our gateway script, we want our gateway script to be as readable as possible. This one here is indicating the whole gateway script is in one line. So this itself is actually really hard for a developer to actually read if they were looking at this code, because you can see the whole thing is in one line. So that's the what we call issues or violations relating to the configuration, and at the moment we've got about 15 of those configuration issues that we get flagged in Sonarqube against the policy and the configuration gateway files. Next thing is diagram generation. As because we actually do a large amount of parsing of your code and logic, and we have built up a large amount of information about your logic, we have a lot of information available to present back to you to help with your understanding of the code. In this case here, there's a configuration item in the properties file that says, I want to generate the diagram in this particular path. This particular path here is the base path, and then what we do is we append on the project at the end of it, just to distinguish between projects if you've got multiple projects and only one server for your web pages. In this case here, it generates a whole bunch of HTML pages and images, and I'm presenting these back with a Mongoose server running locally. If we look here, this is the actual content of the diagrams that get generated, and the main page being the generated.html page. We also do a markdown version of this, but I won't be covering that in this demonstration, but it contains very similar data. In this case here, if I jump into the generated, I see I get a message broker flow diagram. In this case here, we've only got one flow, because what we're doing is showing the interaction between a flow and an API Connect configuration. But what we can do here is, because we have a whole bunch of information about your code, in this case here, what we've done is we've pulled out information about all the API Connect products we've found. So in this case here, it's telling you where it is. That's information about it, so its name, the host it's providing it from, the base path, and any relationships to any other flows. What we also do here is we extract all the gateway scripts, so you can actually see all the gateway scripts being developed, just to have a bit of an overall view. In this case here, we've extracted the gateway script, so it's now readable by the user, so they can jump around, have a look, navigate around, have a look at standards, see what different ones are doing, see if there's anything that jumps out at them as strange or an issue. So as you build out the information on the IIB and API Connect configuration, we click information about the ingress and the egress from both the API Connect configurations and the IIB configurations. This allows us to document relationships between the two. In this case here, in this example, we can see a relationship between the target from an API Connect gateway definition and a message flow via the target URL. So in this case here, we have a API Connect product with the title of app endpoint, which is directing traffic to the test message flow. In this case here, we can see it's via the test1 URL. And we can also navigate to that same information by looking at the list of API Connect configuration, and we can see here that this actual one here, or this one here, has a relationship, or there's a relationship between this API connector flow ingress and egress is out to the test1 message flow here, which is the diagram I just showed you. And this is, as I said, navigated by the target URL. So in this case here, we've got an app endpoint. So if we look at the app endpoint configuration itself, that file there, which we can look actually through here. If we go back to the project and the code, if we're looking for app host args cut down YAML, app host args cut down YAML, and we can see the endpoint URL is test1. And we can see that it's going to the test1 message flow. And we can see here that this actually is providing a test1 URL input, which the relationship is built from. So thank you for joining our demonstration or walkthrough. Hopefully you've got something useful out of it. If you are interested in finding out more about our products or you're interested in a complete demonstration, please reach out to me via my email, which is richard@bettercodingtools.com, or via our website, www.bettercodingtools.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.